I can only imagine how frustrating this is for Andrew Tate. She should know him backwards and forwards. This is an embarrassment. So, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Andrew Tate was arrested back in December, and he was held in a Romanian prison for 3 months. There were no formal charges pressed against him because they are allowed to hold you in jail in Romania while they're investigating, so you don't even need to have charges pressed against you. Finally, I think it was at the end of March or so, he was able to go home on house arrest. And so he's on house arrest. The BBC, one of the world's leading media sources, or they were, they come knocking and they say, please let us interview you. He agrees. They set this up. They sit in his house, because that's where he has to stay, and they interview him. A little while later, interview goes out into the world, and of course it is chopped up and slanted and a way to make Andrew Tate look like an absolute monster, which is what the media does to him no matter what. Everything is out of context. I mean, this is nothing new. There should be no surprise. There shouldn't have been a surprise to Tate, quite frankly. I don't know why he was surprised. Maybe I don't know what his motivation was for doing this interview. I think they played nice in the beginning and made it seem like it was going to be fair. Anyway, in response to the interview that went up fully edited, he put out the fully unedited version of it that his team had recorded during the interview. It's on Rumble. I'm going to put the link in this video for you to watch it. I can only imagine how frustrating this is for Andrew Tate, that every time he puts himself out into the world, there are people that are just cutting up his words and his content, taking them out of context, and deliberately to make him look bad. This happens to a lot of people. He happens to be the most Googled man on the planet. Pretty big guy. It's really frustrating to constantly have to stand up for yourself. But thank God he's strong. He's a fighter. It's frustrating for his fans. But I found some things that really, I think, are positive. I think are really positive rays of light that are proving that the Matrix is starting to break down, and I'm having a little fun with it. So let's just take a peek into the video first and get a feel for it.
I have to be very careful with what I say, but let's put it this way. No women are coming out against me and accusing me of doing it.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. Who?
There's testimony from the current investigation.
The current investigation, which I cannot discuss, which I know intimately and you don't. I can tell you right now that the women who are in this case file, there are 2 American women who have been caught already admitting they're lying, and then nobody else is accusing me of anything.
To begin with, it's very common in cases like this that the alleged victims do not always see themselves as victims.
Well, that's very interesting.
That is very interesting. So a government can charge somebody with a crime even if the victim doesn't speak out against the crime. Hell, the victim may be dead already. The victim may be as in a murder, or maybe a child who isn't even able to speak yet. So of course the state has the power to charge. So these victims may say, no, I don't want any part of this, but the state does have the right to continue to press forward on charges. She's right. But throughout this video, what you're going to see is her talking about charges and talking about things that Andrew said online with very, very, very little research done into anything. All of it is flimsy. And as soon as he pushes back on her, she flails and backs up and says something else. So for here, in this particular case, she said, there are witnesses, there is testimony, they are definitely there. And they're saying these bad things about you. And he says, who? And she goes, well, some of them don't even consider themselves victims. So what are you talking about? So you're trying to push that these people, that there are many people who are saying these things, and then you're saying, oh, that they may not even see themselves as that. She's talking in circles already. This is 2 minutes in. I'm not showing the whole video beginning to end because you'll be able to watch it yourself. It's just kind of to set the tone that she has done a surprisingly poor job of preparing for this lazy entire interview. And you'll see it throughout. But I'm going to get back to that particular point in a bit.
By the case.
We have an open criminal investigation. I am absolutely not really sure I'll be found innocent. I know the case better than you. I know it intimately and you don't. I have seen all the criminal files and the evidence against me and you haven't. I know the truth of what happened and you don't. And I'm telling you absolutely not really, I've never hurt anybody, that the case that's been put against me is completely and utterly fabricated. And I'm never going to be found guilty of anything. And it's very difficult for me to answer your in-depth questions because we're sitting here inside of the territory of Romania. I'm beholden to the Romanian legal system. And I'm not going to incriminate myself because you're trying to prod me.
So he's in the middle of a case. There are certain things he can't talk about. His lawyers have told him he doesn't want to make anything worse for himself. Obviously, that's just sound advice that he's received and that he's following. Main point here is he's beholden to the Romanian criminal justice system. The Romanian government has their thumb on this guy right now. So as I mentioned earlier, via this case, I learned that in Romania, you can be held without charges. Like, really let that one sink in for a second. You can be a suspect of a crime and they can just pull you into jail. That's it. Now imagine you're broke, you're poor. What do? Now your family, you're the sole provider. Your family can't eat because you're just being held. You haven't even been charged with anything. Here in the United States, you have to be charged first and then you can be held. And then some people freak out because while you're waiting for trial, you're in jail, you may be innocent. And, there's some argument around, is that fair to be even held in jail when you haven't been officially convicted? But to not even be charged, this is a big deal. So I was starting to think about why is no one coming to this guy's defense? I don't see anything about the United States government or the UK government coming to his defense and trying from a diplomatic standpoint to help him out. He is a UK and a US citizen, so you would think that they might care, but I haven't heard anything. I don't know if you guys have. But so I started thinking otherwise. Outside of governments, who do we have? We have Amnesty International. Amnesty International started back in the 60s. And let me just read, because their words are better than mine, their mission statement, short and sweet. Amnesty International is a global movement of more than 10 million people who take injustice personally. We are campaigning for a world where human rights are enjoyed by all. All. Okay, let's remember that. I used to write letters for Amnesty in high school. There was an Amnesty International club, and they would bring us issues, and then we would, one of the teachers ran the club, bring us the issue, and then we would write a letter, and multiple letters, maybe write 10 letters to 10 different congressmen and women, and mail them out. And back then we were handwriting these things, and we were doing this, and I did this for years, in the hopes of maybe making a difference somewhere, convince our government to, push on another government on their human rights violation. And, I felt like I was doing something good. I've since lost touch with the organization, but I never lost that emotional connection that I had with them and that respect for them, thinking they were doing the right thing. They have massive political, legal, and financial power and connections. It's the resources are big. So let's talk about what Amnesty International on their website had to say about Romania in 2022. I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but I'm going to read you enough excerpts to make you think, because what I'm about to say is kind of disturbing me. In its July Rule of Law report, the European Commission highlighted the need for Romania to reinforce judicial independence and address challenges around anti-corruption institutions. The report raised concerns over frequent changes in legislation, regular use of emergency orders, and limited public consultation, as well as risks to media freedom. The EC also called for the establishment of a national human rights institution. So there isn't even a national human rights institution of any sort, I guess. This is very important. In October, the United Nations General Assembly elected Romania as a member of the UN Human Rights Council for 2023 to 2025. That is 2 months before Tate was, arrested, which I think was December 30th, right after Christmas of 2022. Romania's record on implementing judgments by the European Court of Human Rights was among the poorest in the EU. So it goes on and on and on about how Romania is just not a top contender in the fight for, being great on human rights. One survey said there were concerns of excessive use of force by police, as well as failure to respect the right of inmates to effective legal defense, and a low rate of complaints about alleged abuse, partly due to fear of repercussions. So the people are afraid of the government in Romania. And Amnesty International, which has been fighting for 60 years for human rights for all, has not said a word about this, that Andrew has been held without charge. Here's what really gets good, though. The number of reported incidents of violence against women, including femicides, remained high. A 2022 to 27 national strategy for the promotion of equal opportunities between women and men and the prevention and combating of domestic violence, which had been under public consultation since March 2021, was adopted in December. In October, protests were held across the country demanding action to combat violence against women, including sexual and domestic violence, denouncing state failure to ensure protection for victims. So Amnesty International is putting pressure on Romania to do better by women. And then they get elected to the UN Special Council for Human Rights. They also happen to be bordering a hot war between Ukraine and Russia. So Romania is in a tight spot here, and they're getting protests from their own citizens saying, you got to take better care of women. What do we do? What do we do? Oh, how about we find a man who's one of the biggest personalities on the world stage, and we take him down for sex trafficking and rape and allegations of emotional abuse. Let's do that. Let's build a case against him, and the whole world will pay attention, and they will pat us on the back and say, wow, they did deserve that position in the UN, on a Human Rights Commission. Wow, they are really taking this seriously in their country. They are listening to their people. I don't know. It's plausible. The timing is right between the war and the UN appointment and the pressure from the people and Amnesty reports and the EU reports. Got to do something big. Let's go after Andrew Tate. It's not too ridiculous. But what is ridiculous and disturbing is that Amnesty International is not using this to its favor. Because here you have somebody who has money and resources, and he can fight his own legal fights, right? So they may say he doesn't need us. But getting in the fight with him and shining light on it, because while people are paying attention, could save thousands or millions of Romanians from that same fate, people who can't afford it. But they haven't come out once, not once, and said, look at this law. We've been fighting against this, that we think this is wrong. And now the whole world is watching. This is our chance to get Romania to change this. And not a peep. Why? Well, on the Amnesty International website, I'm going to let you make your own conclusions here. But please, let me show you something. This is the executive team. This is the executive director, Paul O'Brien. He, him, and his. Bethany Chris, Chief Movement Building and Member Engagement Officer. She, her, hers. Okay, you get where I'm going with this? If there's pronouns on the website, they don't give a shit about Andrew Tate. That's not a big leap to make either. I tried, I looked online, I searched and searched to see if Amnesty even made a PR statement about Andrew Tate and his awful detainment without being charged. Nothing. I couldn't find a single word or a tweet. I don't know. Maybe it's out there. If it is, it's deep, real deep. I couldn't find it. All right, let's get back to the video, though. Because if Amnesty International is ignoring Tate, the UK, US governments are ignoring Tate. It is all they're all working in cahoots with the media, for sure. I mean, the media is doing everything they can to destroy him because masculinity is apparently a nightmare for them. People who want to be independent and think for themselves and have strength in their lives is terrible. Okay, let's see this.
We'll see which women go to court.
I'm describing women who are going to court to accuse you of rape and human
Sophie hasn't gone to court. Sophie doesn't exist.
And I'm describing women who have spoken to the BBC at length.
Sophie doesn't exist.
And other media organisations about what they say is emotional manipulation and coercion. And I'm quoting back to you your own words where you describe
They're not my words.
Coercion.
They're words you found. They're words you found on the internet, and Sophie doesn't exist. So let's move on to the next subject.
Your voice.
Move on to the next subject.
No, I think I'll stick on this one for a minute. So there's other places in that same website where you say you get girls to fall in love with you and they do it because they love you, because they want to do what you say. Convincing women to take part in some kind of business arrangement doesn't work long term because they're emotional. You've got to get them to fall in love with you. That's coercion, that's emotional manipulation, that's abuse.
What you've found are clips from the internet, some text from the internet, and you're going to sit here and tell me that that's the reason I should be
your website, your words.
It's not my website.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Check my website. Next.
This continues to go on. She should be in there spitting facts. This was on your website from this date to this date, and this is how I got it, and then it disappeared on this date, and so. Every single detail she should know. This is an embarrassment. She doesn't have dates. She doesn't know what page it was on. She doesn't have a source. She just drops it. She literally sounds like somebody arguing on Instagram or TikTok against Andrew Tate. These are the same arguments that nitwits on those platforms have, who have never watched a single long-form Andrew Tate podcast. I'm not like in love with Andrew Tate because everybody's going to come back and be like, oh, she's just a fangirl. I have bones to pick with him. But I am more interested in what's fair and what's true. And I'm tired of watching the media manipulate everybody. And worse, I'm tired of watching everybody just walk around being manipulated and not even waking up and saying, oh, maybe I should double check that before I repeat it.
Conspiracy theory. If you're going to sit here and say that me believing a woman should take a man's last name in marriage makes me the most dangerous man in the world, then you're just going to lose even more credibility than the BBC's already lost in the last 4 to 5 years. If that's your point, if that's your narrative you want to push,
say that
good
men
luck.
should be able to sleep with a lot of women outside marriage. That doesn't sound very religious or very conservative.
That's not what I said they should be able to. I said a lot of high-value men, a lot of rich men do it. And then we discussed at length on podcasts why rich men do it. And we also discussed why women decide to be unfaithful. It's not a gendered argument. We discussed unfaithfulness as a whole. What are the reasons and motivations for men, and what are the reasons and motivations for women? Because you have no time to actually, watch my content, because you have no time to actually watch my content at length and understand what I'm saying, you just come here with a small snippet which has been provided to you on a piece of paper.
Saying it 3 times doesn't make it true.
No, completely. You don't have a clue what I say or what I talk about. You never watch my content. You have small pieces of paper, small clips on a piece of paper, and you're trying to pretend I've said evil things. And then you're going to say I'm the most dangerous man in the world.
Tate is absolutely right. This woman should have spent a week at least locked in a hotel room watching Tate videos, long form. Instead, she had some intern pull some TikToks and comments off of Reddit, and she's speaking about them as if they're just the absolute fact, and when they're taken out of context. I've seen some of these long form videos. I know what he's talking about. She should know him backwards and forwards for this interview. And she's so unprepared, and this is so weak, and she's so outmatched that it is suspicious. I can't help but to wonder if this is happening on purpose. Now, hear me out on this one.
Conspiracy theories now. Why not?
This is the bright side. Throughout history, there have always been people who started something, it started to go down a road, and it went sideways, and it wasn't working out. And from the inside, they tried to break it. There's this guy. Let me give you an example. Klaus von Stauffenberg. Very fun to say. So von Stauffenberg, he was a Nazi. He was a colonel in Hitler's army. And he started out, a young Nazi, very idealistic, hearing the way, if you don't know, the way the Nazi party really gained power was after World War I, Germany lost, and they just got, in the Treaty of Versailles, the peace treaty, they just got nothing. They just got railroaded completely. They were overpunished for their part in World War I. So the Nazis came along and they say, okay, this punishment doesn't fit the crime, and we're sick of being subdued, and we're sick of being held back, and we want Germany to rise again. So let's get together as a people and make this country wonderful and make it strong again. That was the initial Nazi message, okay? So, people were tired of feeling oppressed and feeling sad about what happened in World War I. They wanted to move the nation forward, so they got on board. It wasn't long before the truth of what they came out. The rest of the truth came out. But Stauffenberg got in the beginning, and he was on board. And as it went through the years, 1939 hits, and all of a sudden, war breaks out. Things are getting really ugly. So it's 1944, the year before the war ended. Stauffenberg is a colonel at this point in the army. He is in the Wolf's Lair, which was the Hitler's military headquarters on the Eastern Front. They're in a bunker, and he is part of a conspiracy to try to assassinate Hitler on this particular day. And there were multiple assassination attempts because there were multiple groups of high-ranking generals, colonels, who realized that Hitler had lost his mind. He had lost his way. There were evil things going on in the regime that they never signed up for. And so Stauffenberg made an attempt. Sadly, it didn't work. Hitler came out there was a suitcase bomb. Hitler came out with a few scratches. And what happened after that is Stauffenberg, at the age of 36, was sentenced to death by firing squad. So I don't think any of that's going to happen today. But I say it to point out only one example of what goes on when things go wrong. And these powers that be in the media, these top people at Google, at YouTube, at Twitter, who were before Elon, who were manipulating and still are at TikTok, manipulating information between them and the media and the government and all the top people at all these organizations I don't even know exists. There are people in those who are saying, we've gone too far. It's gotten out of control. We have to fix this. We have to break this. But they can't say it out loud because they'll be Strauffenberged. So they need to quietly break it. What do? You get an interview with Andrew Tate and you convince everybody that you got to send in Lucy Williamson. Oh, she's got a great resume. She's been a BBC correspondent for years, 20 years. As a respected journalist, she's a woman. You got to have a woman to go in and take down that misogynist. You can sell that. And all of them sitting there clapping, going, yes, let's send Lucy in. She will eat him alive. And then you tell Lucy that she's going, and you hand her a couple of sheets of paper that is basically a TikTok term paper. And Lucy, for whatever reason, didn't do her own homework, or this was her homework, just reading her TikTok term paper, and she came in here. And Andrew Tate stood against her. We saw this last month in the CNN town hall with Donald Trump. They sent in Caitlin Collins, and she shows up in her white Me Too pantsuit, and her hair is perfect, and she's got her attitude, and she is just going to snip, snip, snip at this president. She's going to tell him what's what. She had like a Twitter term paper. It was slightly better than what Lucy walked into Tate's house prepared with. But she mostly sounded, everything she said was just things that Twitter trolls say. Half-truths, but out of context truths and ridiculous talking points. She got eaten alive by President Trump. I believe that that's purposeful. I believe there are people on the inside who are trying to put cracks in the facade, who are trying to loosen up bolts that are holding the matrix together. I really do, because it has always existed. I mean, at least Caitlin went and made herself look good and put on a nice pantsuit. Lucy, what did she do? She looks like somebody rang the doorbell while she was cleaning the bathroom floor. She didn't even brush her hair. She's so disrespectful and dismissive of him, on top of being unprepared. This is the only interaction or the only exposure I've ever had to this woman, and I am so not impressed.
I'm not impressed!
You don't believe me yet? That this is a real thing, that people kill from the inside, that people destroy from the inside? Of course they do. Go back 2,100 years, Julius Caesar. He was a dictator of Rome. He started a civil war. He started breaking his word, caused the civil war, won the civil war, was so full of himself, he thought he was going to be made king. What could be? He's already dictator. Why be king? So that he would have royal blood, and the power would be passed on through the generations. And the Senate was getting sick of it. He had gotten too big for his britches. So Brutus and Cassius, these two guys, these two senators who he counted to be extremely loyal friends, they plotted with a couple dozen other senators, and he walks into the Senate floor and he thinks he's going to be made king soon. So this could be the meeting where he's going to be made king. And they stabbed him to death, and he dropped dead on the Senate floor. If that could happen to Julius Caesar, it is totally believable that there are people inside these powerful organizations that are manipulating world powers, and that they could be trying to do good and make changes. It's totally realistic.
I really think that it's genuinely sad that when the BBC has a chance to finally interview me at the end of all this Matrix attack, that they don't come here with any kind of genuine openness to try and understand my influence over the world, or the things I push, or what I'm trying to teach the world, or why I'm a good influence on the world, because I am a massively good influence. Instead, they come here with pieces of paper with printed out excerpts from 5-year-old podcasts, taken out of context, to attempt the same Matrix attack on me, which has been attempted endlessly. Every single person in legacy media has already tried this, and it doesn't work. I encourage you to read the comment section on YouTube when this goes on YouTube, and you will see that nobody believes a word you're saying.
The reason I'm asking you about these comments is because we've got the chief executive of Rape Crisis naming you individually as spreading a dangerous ideology of misogynistic rape culture.
Absolute.
It's the comments you make that are leading people to say things like this.
Absolute garbage.
National organisations who are saying that, are blaming you for increasing levels of misogyny. Schools that are saying they are having increased incidents of girls being attacked, of female teachers being harassed.
If that was
by
true,
pupils,
if that,
because of you and your teaching
well,
and your influence.
that's absolute garbage.
She makes these broad generalizations. She would have been much more impactful if she had just made even one specific allegation that said a teacher was, beat up by a student, and the kid said Andrew Tate told me to do it. But even at that, it would be so easy to argue. So what? Son of Sam killed all those people in New York in the 70s, and he said his dog made him do it. Andrew Tate can't make people do things. He's not a fucking wizard.
I have never, ever encouraged a student to attack a teacher, male or female, ever. I preach hard work, discipline. I'm an athlete. I preach anti-drug. I preach religion. I preach no alcohol. I preach no knife crime. Every single problem with modern society, I'm against. I'm teaching young men to be disciplined, to be diligent, to listen, to train, to work hard, to be exactly like me, with no criminal record, never even yet charged in this 14-month Matrix investigation. And I'm saying that if men grew up like me, which are hardworking and diligent and emotional control and stoic, we're going to have a better society, not a worse society. To sit here and say that schools in England, which is a failing nation, which has knife crime going through the roof, violence going through the roof, men's mental health going through the roof, and they're going to all blame me because I appeared on the internet 1 year ago, is disingenuous. It's disingenuous.
You
And
also,
also,
financial success
correct.
with a Bugatti and a cigar, but it comes with a side order of misogyny.
How?
A Bugatti and a cigar and success are misogynistic. This is how much they try to convince people that success is bad, that mediocrity is good, and it's just okay to just sit back and be a couch potato and sit in your feelings. That's what they want people doing. Well, some of us aren't having it, which is why Andrew Tate has such a following. Some of us have feelings, instincts, and above all, thoughts that tell us that we can accomplish great things on this earth. And you've got people like this woman telling people that an image of success is harmful.
How does having a Bugatti and a cigar come with misogyny?
Yeah, he asks. She has no good explanation. She just keeps talking in circles. Listen to this.
Because it's all mixed together in what you teach. You teach that if a woman comes home and accuses you of cheating, you should hit her with a machete, shove her off. Is that
what I teach?
That's what you say.
No, if you actually watch the clip, it will be about the woman attacking me with a machete. As usual, you've not watched the video, taken it out of context, flipped it, and attempted to attack me with a small excerpt. Let me tell you something, Lucy. I'm sure you're a very nice person. I'm sure you're a fantastic person. But if I were to take everything you've ever said online and just take small excerpts out of context, I could make you look like a misogynist. I guarantee it. In fact, I might actually do that. And then you're going to sit here and say, oh shit, I'm a misogynist because my clips have been taken out of context. If you refuse to watch anything at length and understand it, then that's what's going to happen.
The National Police Chiefs Lead for Violence Against Women, the NSPCC, Rape Crisis, Safer Schools, they are all naming you as being behind an epidemic of misogyny, even amongst primary school children.
Epidemic.
The idea that I made primary school children misogynistic because I own a nice car. Is that your argument?
It's the misogyny that comes along with it.
Oh, owning a nice car is misogynist.
No, it's the misogyny that comes along with it.
How does misogyny come along with owning a nice car?
Because you have an image of financial
I'm glad you're answering my questions now. We finally got the dynamic.
You have an image of financial success.
She's answering my questions as she should.
Excuse me. You have an image of financial success, but it comes along with attitudes towards women that are really problematic.
My attitudes towards women is that women should be protected and provided for, and I've said that at length. In fact, I've said that over 50 times online. You never mention it. I say
he has. I've heard him. He talks about it constantly. Okay. Success is bad. Bugattis are bad. Cigars are bad. Masculinity and strength is bad. Okay, I'm pretty sure I got her shtick down. What I say about this is, watch this whole video if you can stomach it. This isn't edited out to make her look bad. She looks bad through the whole video. You can watch the whole thing. I'll put it in the description. I do think that this last segment here is even more proof that it is suspicious that they would send somebody like her in to interview Tate. And it can't help but make me realize I think someone's doing it on purpose, and it makes me happy. And it is a positive development as far as I'm concerned. Call me crazy. All right, guys. Oh, one more thing. If there are those people in there and you think you know who they are, don't say anything. They get destroyed. Look what they've done recently to FBI whistleblowers here in the U.S. or anywhere any whistleblower gets destroyed. Let them destroy from within peacefully without being exposed. Let's help, not hurt this anymore. Thanks for watching, guys. Join me on Twitter. Let's talk about it there. Bye.